Unanimity is not necessarily a good sign, but when it comes to this particular lawsuit, I think the opinion of the legal community is going to be unanimous.
This lawsuit is going to fail.
Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is Winnie the Westie, and we are in a borrowed office, and my goodness, do I dare say I love this office. I sort of feel like Homer Simpson in the episode when he was mansion sitting for Mr. Burns, and then at the end of the episode he had to give up the mansion. I don't want to give up this car. I love this car. Alright, but all of that set aside, today's vlog is breaking down the lawsuit filed by Spencer Elder against Nirvana and pretty much anyone and everyone that had anything to do with that band, more specifically the album Nevermind, which featured Spencer Elder as a 4-month-old boy nude in a pool chasing a dollar bill on a fishhook. I'm not going to show that image for obvious reasons, even though it was on the cover album of one of the most successful albums in history, but Spencer Elder has now, at the age of 30, decided to sue Nirvana, all of the band members, the estate of Kurt Cobain, the producers, anyone that had anything to do with that album, for CP on the basis that that cover album constituted CP and that Spencer Elder is entitled to statutory damages as provided for by law. Now, spoiler alert, when I say that this lawsuit is destined to fail, it is destined to fail if for no other reason than the statute of limitations has been exceeded. Even by the plain wording of the law, this lawsuit had to have been filed within 10 years of Spencer Elder turning 18. He is now 30. This lawsuit is time-barred, period. But even if this lawsuit were not time-barred, I think there are practical reasons for which this lawsuit will always fail. I don't think that cover album is ever going to be deemed to be CP. The practical realities of even thinking about recognizing that album cover as CP would turn basically a lot of people in America into criminals for possessing that album. And when someone files a lawsuit that is basically deemed to fail on its face, even by the allegations in that very lawsuit, some people can begin to hypothesize on the intentions of why the individual would file the lawsuit. Is it a money grab? Is it him discovering that he is in fact a victim and wants justice? It doesn't matter. We don't address intentions here unless it's absolutely necessary. Let's just break into the lawsuit. United States District Court, Central District of California, Spencer Elden, plaintiff, versus Nirvana LLC, Universal Music Group Inc., The David Geffen Company, Geffen Records, Warner Records Inc., MCA Inc., Kirk Weddle, Kurt Cobain deceased, Courtney Love as the executor of the estate of Kurt Cobain, Heather Parry as manager of the estate of Kurt Cobain, Guy Oseary as manager of the estate of Kurt Cobain, Christ Novoselic, Chad Channing, David Grohl, and Robert Fisher, defendants. Verified complaint pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 2255. To simplify the basis of this lawsuit, the plaintiff is requesting the court to acknowledge, recognize, deem the photograph on the cover album of Nevermind to constitute CP, such that under section 2255 of the law, the plaintiff is entitled to statutory damages from everyone who had a part
in disseminating that CP.
The statutory damages or liquidated damages are in the amount of $150,000, and the allegations are that the various defendants produced this content, made money off this content, and therefore breached the provisions of the United States Code such that the plaintiff is entitled to damages. That is the legislative basis for the lawsuit. We can skip over the jurisdiction and venue and parties because there are a lot of the parties and just get into the facts at issue here. Sometime in 1990, DCG Records hired Fisher to design cover artwork for Nirvana LLC with the primary purpose of facilitating the creation, promotion, advertisement, trade, sale, distribution, and commercial success of their music records. According to Fisher, Nirvana LLC wanted images of nude babies for the production of their 1991 Nevermind album cover. Nirvana LLC ultimately decided to use a dollar bill on a fishhook as a prop after an extensive debate between the use of a dollar bill, raw meat, a dog, and other objects commonly associated with prurient interests. Cobain added a fishhook specifically to make the image more menacing. Cobain, Weddle, and Fisher determined that they had to, quote, make the photo more than just a baby underwater, end quote. The concept and creation of this image replicated previous controversial campaigns used to promote music with sexually explicit material depicting child or outright CP, including the album cover for Scorpions' Virgin Killer, Blind Faith, and Van Halen's Balance. Perhaps I'm showing my ignorance, or perhaps I'm just revealing my taste in music, but I don't know any of those albums or album covers. But the argument here is not just that a picture of a nude baby in a pool is itself CP. The argument is that by having added the dollar bill to the hook, they created something of an aura of sex worker to this image, thus making it CP. In 1991, Weddle, a photographer, took explicit photos of Spencer, who was then a 4-month-old baby, in a pool at the Pasadena Aquatic Center in Pasadena, California. Weddle took a series of sexually graphic nude photographs of Spencer. To ensure the album cover would trigger a visceral sexual response from the viewer, Weddle activated Spencer's gag reflex before throwing him underwater in poses highlighting and emphasizing Spencer's exposed genitals. This allegation is somewhat problematic in my mind because I think it infuses way too much opinion in the allegation. I don't know anybody who ever looked at Nirvana's Nevermind cover album and had a visceral sexual response by looking at it. The other problem to me also is attributing the reason for which they allegedly triggered Spencer's gag reflex. From what I understand of parenting and swimming, it is a technique that parents and instructors do use when teaching young kids to get comfortable with the water. They get the kids to breathe in quickly before submerging them so that they don't breathe in underwater. Setting that aside, this entire lawsuit is going to hinge on whether or not any court anywhere is ever going to recognize or deem that cover album to be CP. And even in the extremely outside chance that you ever find a judge or a jury that would be willing to qualify that album cover as CP, I think Spencer is objectively, by the letter of the law, time-barred from filing this action. And now back to the context surrounding the capture of that iconic photograph. Cobain chose the image depicting Spencer like a sex worker grabbing for a dollar bill that is positioned dangling from a fishhook in front of his nude body with his penis explicitly displayed. Fisher admired, quote, the positioning, the look on the baby's face, the way that his arms were stretched out like he was reaching for something, end quote. The lawsuit then goes over the definition of CP under the law, which reads as follows. Any visual depiction, including any photograph, film, video, picture, or computer-generated image or picture, whether made or produced by electronic, mechanical, or other means, of sexually explicit conduct where A. The production of such visual depiction involves the use of a minor engaging in sexually explicit conduct. B. Such visual depiction is a digital image, computer image, or computer-generated image that is or is indistinguishable from that of a minor engaging in sexually explicit conduct. Or C. Such visual depiction has been created, adapted, or modified to appear that an identifiable minor is engaging in sexually explicit conduct. The album Nevermind depicts a lascivious exhibition of Spencer's penis and genital area. And that is where you have the leap in fact and in law. No one will deny that that album cover is the image of a nude 4-month-old baby. The question is whether or not it is lascivious, and the question is whether or not it qualifies as either of the 3 categories of CP as defined under the law. And the other question that we cannot ignore is what would be the practical consequences if a judge or jury qualified that album as CP? That would mean that anyone who sold, bought, or possesses that album right now
would be guilty of a crime.
I do not think under any factual or legal set of circumstances that album cover would ever be deemed to be CP, such that I don't think Spencer even has a claim under the law, but even if he did, the claim would be time barred, and with respect to one of the defendants, I don't think there's any link in law because apparently one of the defendants was not even a member of Nirvana, the band, when that album was produced. Setting all of that aside, assuming a court would deem this image to be CP, assuming that Spencer was within the statute of limitations, I think many people would probably raise the argument that Spencer himself has waived any right he had to this claim by tacitly accepting of the image insofar as he, on multiple occasions, replicated that own image himself. The lawsuit then goes on to set out the criteria that the courts have established in order to recognize whether an image is in fact sexually explicit, and I think even by the criteria that the plaintiff lists in the lawsuit, the image does not qualify. The DOST factors control whether an image is sexually explicit or deemed an exhibition of a child's genitals, pubic, or rectal area. These factors include 1. Whether the focal point is on the child's genitalia or pubic area. 2. Whether the setting is sexually suggestive, i.e. in a place or pose generally associated with sexual activity. 3. Whether the child is in an unnatural pose or in inappropriate attire considering the age of the child. 4. Whether the child is fully or partially clothed or nude. 5. Whether the child's conduct suggests sexual coyness or a willingness to engage in sexual activity. 6. Whether the conduct is intended or designed to elicit a sexual response in the viewer. With respect to item 6 of the DOST criteria, whether or not the image was designed to elicit a sexual response, we do know the plaintiff is going to argue that this thought did in fact cross Kurt Cobain's mind, allegedly, because apparently at the time they were facing backlash over this image, and Kurt Cobain had floated the idea of putting a sticker strategically over the baby's genitals and saying, if this offends you, you might be a potato-phile. That will be the argument as to how any of the criteria in the DOST decision could possibly apply to this particular image, but like I said before, this lawsuit, in my humble opinion, is destined to fail. Statute of limitations. Any action commenced under this section shall be barred unless the complaint is filed 1. Not later than 10 years after the date on which the plaintiff reasonably discovers the later of A, the violation that forms the basis for the claim, or B, the injury that forms the basis for the claim, or 2, not later than 10 years after the date on which the victim reaches 18 years of age. Spencer Elder is now 30 years old, so he is on the plainest and simplest reading of the black and white letter of the law, clearly time barred, and I know there are exceptional circumstances under law where even the statute of limitations themselves can be suspended if, for example, the plaintiff was in a coma and physically could not act, but I do not see this case satisfying any of those exceptional circumstances. This lawsuit is clearly time barred. It is destined to fail. I do not see it surviving any motion to dismiss, and the question is going to be, why would Spencer file a lawsuit that is doomed to fail? Some people are going to look at it as a money grab. Others are going to look at it as him just wanting to tell his story. That is going to be up to you, the viewer, to decide.
But this is a breakdown of the lawsuit itself.
And with that said, if you like my videos, you like my content, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you've watched until now and have not hit the notification bell or the subscribe button,
Winston is going to be very disappointed.
If you want to support the channel, all the support links are in the pinned comment. Robert Barnes and I do weekly live streams every Sunday. We do weekly streams with a guest every Wednesday called The Sidebar. If you want to find us and support us on Locals, you can find us at
VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com.
All of my content is also on Rumble, so you can catch me there, but more important than any of that, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and now you know your vlog. Peace out.
Booyah!